we come back around to Jason on this question, and it's from a group of folks here who are representing folks from the adult education program. They say there are over 800,000 students in Arizona who need GEDs, yet the state eliminated funding for adult education, which jeopardizes $12 million in matching federal funding. Will you support reinstating funding, $4 million, for adult education and GED testing? And if elected, will you meet with adult education student leaders? We'll start with you, Jason.
Well, I'm glad this question was asked because this is yet another program that was cut that many people across the state aren't aware of these cuts. And so I will absolutely pledge to support the reinstatement of the funds. And while we're fighting for the reinstatement of the funds, I'm also pledging that we're going to work aggressively, again, through grant money, like I referenced in an earlier response, to find the money right away to make sure we can start getting adult education back and running and in place for those that need it. We can't, again, always just wait for the legislature to do what they should do, because we've learned they're not going to do what's right. So that's why we've got to be fighting to make sure that the state superintendent uses everything in his power to get resources where they're needed the most right away. In terms of adult education and meeting and collaborating, I've already pledged that I'm going to put together a task force and committee that's going to meet regularly with me on the subject of adult education, and that will include not just students but adults as well. And so we're going to make sure that there's constant communication happening between the Department of Education on this and many, many other issues.
Thank you. Penny.
Certainly I support adult education. I think it's critically important for a number of reasons and in a number of ways. And I also think that there are probably a number of creative ways that we can make some small steps in the absence of initial funding to reinstate some of the programs that are important to our schools. But let's make no mistake about this. We are not going to fund the needs of public education through grants and community funding. We're going to have to get serious about including these kinds of things that we believe are important in the overall restructuring of our public education funding formula. It's important to look at adult education from two perspectives. One is adult education can be a very, very powerful community engagement tool. It can bring parents into the school. It can have them help them learn with their children and their students so that they begin to learn things together, and that creates a much, much better bond between the school, the parent, and the student, and increases student learning at a tremendous rate. We need more of those kinds of programs in our public schools all across the state of Arizona. Certainly adult education, these small programs, one of the things I think is truly disheartening about this last budget was that a number of these issues were cut, not just because of budget cuts, but they were removed permanently from the Department of Education's budget, sending a signal to our citizens that they are not programs that the state believes should be funded by our state. I'm completely opposed to that, and will work very, very hard to reinstate not only this program, but several others that I believe are critical to the continuum of instruction and education for our citizens.
John.
I think adult education is absolutely critical. There are a whole broad array of professions in which you have to have a high school diploma or a GED to enter into those occupations. And so we need to keep that stream going. I would like to tell you that, boy, it looks like on the horizon the economy is going to take off, there's going to be money, and we'll be able to work with the legislature to put those funds back in place. But that doesn't look like it's going to happen. Our national economy is absolutely stagnating. I've had 3 hours of discussions with a Nobel Prize winner, Ed Prescott, up at ASU, talking about what he thinks will get it going. He's not being listened to, and he won his Nobel Prize in business cycle theory. And it looks like, from his standpoint, that we might be in this for 10 years if we don't change gears. So we are going to have to make do with less money, and the way we're going to have to do that is some highly creative organizational relationships with community colleges, with universities, with our existing K-12 school system to get this done, because we can't afford not to get it done. Too much economic opportunity will be lost. I've had a number of meetings with the adult education community. We've started to talk about these things. We will make it an integral part of the operations when I become superintendent.
Thank you. Margaret.
Well, I truly believe in adult education because I did teach adults. And so did my brother. My brother was the adult education director for Yuma County for over 37 years. And so not only do I believe in it, I passionately believe in adult education. There was a study in 1980, A Nation at Risk, that came up with the research that a mother's level of education has a lot to do with the children, whether or not they finish high school. So we must make sure that our parents get a sound foundation if we expect their children to get through school. And so, as I said, I believe in adult education because I did teach adults. And Karen Lurch, our adult education deputy associate, this year after we were cut, our adult education budget went out and creatively worked with the community colleges to get some of our funds to help with our adult education programs in many of our areas that lost the funding. So we are very upset with the cut in adult education because we know how important our GED program is and teaching of English to our parents who do not speak English as a first language. As a high school principal, I ran courses at nighttime for my parents of my children whose first language was not English. And it is important that we hold adult classes at all of our schools to our parents who do not speak English and who want to pursue a GED program. It is so beneficial for their education and for the education of their own children if we want an educated workforce in Arizona. So I am 100% and more for adult education. I will do whatever it takes to get the funding back for adult education, whatever avenue that we pursue as the next superintendent of public instruction.
Thank you. No applause.